What if there is one question, one small change in what you ask yourself that could dramatically shift your purpose? And what if you could laugh and laugh hard while making that shift? Welcome to the Modern Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Julie Lyles Carr. You know, he's been making audiences laugh on NBC's The Tonight Show, on Jimmy Kimmel Live, on Comedy Central, and he's a man on a mission to be more than funny. Today, I welcome Michael Jr. Welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Wow, thanks a lot. And I got an apron.
You got an apron. Okay, so you cook too, or you just have an apron? Because that's different.
I just got an apron.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
well,
I was assuming that you were going to assume that meant I could cook.
I can.
I wouldn't have to lie, but you just didn't assume enough.
I appreciate your honesty, but I'm sure that you do know how to order takeout, and that still counts. If you order takeout in an apron, it's practically like cooking in my book. So
it's just like cooking without the mess.
Yeah, exactly. See, it's actually an advanced form of cooking if you really think about it, right? It really has evolved.
Absolutely.
Right. I agree. So, well, you have been making me laugh for a long time, my friend. And I've had the honor of getting to be around you at a couple of different tapings. We were on a couple of shows, and you are just as funny on the fly as you are on the platform with all the stuff that I know you worked hard on to write. And I just appreciate that so much. I think people who are just genuinely funny throughout are such a treasure. So tell me, growing up, when did you realize that you could make people laugh? And then when did you realize it might actually be a calling versus just something that maybe got you into trouble?
The first time I made somebody laugh on purpose was actually my dad and like my uncle. We went to some friend's house, and I grew up in a neighborhood where you couldn't talk when grown folks were talking. Like that wasn't something a kid would do. So I knew I had something funny to say, but I had to bring it out in the form of a question. So we're at these people's house, and the house was filthy. I mean, we just went over there just for a second. We hadn't been there, and it was really filthy. And I grew up in Michigan, and it was January. It was cold outside, and this house was just really filthy. And the people they were like on welfare, and the heat was on like 104. And I remember leaving that house. We were there for like, I don't know, 3 minutes or something. We just stopped by there for whatever reason. And my dad and my uncle were in the front seat, and I'm in the back seat. And I have a thought, and I think it's going to be funny, but I have to pose it in the form of a question because I don't want to seem disrespectful. So I said to my dad, Dad, I didn't know you could have flies in January. and my uncle cried laughing. Mm-hmm. And I sat there and acted as if I didn't know why they were laughing, but I actually knew. I was like, wow.
Power.
I think I'm on to something. And then I didn't know you could actually make any money at it until, I don't know, 25 years old or something. Like, it didn't even dawn on me that it could be a career, possibly. But I think God kind of knew. He was like, yeah, we'll watch. So it's kind of cool.
That's amazing. I remember the first time I made somebody laugh. It's like my second memory. And it was my younger brother. And I came in from shopping with my mom. And it was just kind of one of those silly little peekaboo kind of moments, just kind of jumping at him. He was in his playpen. And that sense, that joy of getting a response like that out of someone is something that I still can just conjure today. I mean, I can just remember how that felt. What does humor feel like for you? I mean, it is powerful, right? Humor is a very powerful form of communication. What's the feeling you get when you make somebody laugh?
Hey, so you still walk around the grown people and say peekaboo? Like, is that what
No, I've upped my game a tiny bit. I've had a lot of kids, though, and the peekaboo thing has worked for a long time for me, Michael. It's worked for a really long time.
Peekaboo is timeless.
It's timeless. It's a classic.
Peekaboo is really timeless.
It's like a little black dress.
For a long time. Yeah. I used to really feel like the first time I ever made somebody laugh, other than that one, whether this, like on purpose, getting on stage, I was at this movie theater. It's when I first really discovered I had this gift. And I remember feeling like a high for the first time ever in my life. Like, I've never done drugs. I've never smoked a cigarette. I've never had alcohol. I had NyQuil once. Oh, snap. You ever had NyQuil?
I have an affection for NyQuil during cold and flu season. I admit it.
Wow. That stuff is ridiculous.
It is.
But I felt like this sensation. It was amazing. And what happens, though, is if comedians start to enjoy that too much, they'll actually get on stage, and it's happened to me a lot. You'll get on stage, you won't be able to articulate it, but you'll actually be getting up there for yourself more so than for the audience. So I was fortunate enough to have made it like a shift where I was like, you know what? Like, I literally articulated outside this club in Los Angeles. I said, I'm not going to try to get laughs from people. I'm going to try to give them an opportunity to laugh. And that little shift right there really, really, really changed a lot of things. It's the reason for the movie, as a matter of fact. Like, it's the reason for, like, it just, if people would just get a hold of asking the question, what can I give? As opposed to the default question, which is, what can I get? It'll change their life for the good. Literally, it will. If you're a mechanic and you think you get paid to fix vehicles, this shift will cause you to realize that you help ensure that people reach their desired destination. That's way different. That'll put your alarm clock out of bed.
That's beautiful. And you've got this amazing movie coming out called More Than Funny. It's premiering October 18th. And I got to see a little piece of it when you were recently at my home church here in Austin. And it's going to be an incredible film. You do some really amazing things. And, you know, part of what I love about you, Michael, is I know a lot of people who can be very, very funny, but they're profane in it. They use shock humor, that kind of a thing. I think it takes a really beautiful intelligence to be wildly funny, but not traffic completely in that kind of shock jock mentality, bathroom humor, all that kind of thing. When did you begin to realize that you could have comedy and it be a differentiator, that you could do clean comedy? And to me, again, I think it's a statement of genius, because I think any fifth grade boy can make somebody laugh with some kind of bathroom noise, but it really takes something different to be really more intentional with it. When did you realize that that was a lane that you wanted to chase?
Well, I didn't really do it on purpose. I used to, like, there is some pretty raunchy, so to speak, comedy out there. Like, you ever hear somebody on stage and they say peekaboo? Oh, my goodness.
Are you judging me for my peekaboo game? Man, harsh, dude, harsh.
Awesome. So, the reason I decided to do clean comedy, it really was me thinking about my kids in the future. Like, I would think to myself, I didn't go to church. I wasn't one of them people, like, any degree at this point. But I was like, I want my kids to be able to come see me perform. That's what my first thought was. I want my kids to see what I do. So it just created this built-in accountability. So it did make me work a little harder, because when you use profane language, people are just a little shocked by it. And then it's nervous laughter is what it is. And then if you're smart, if you're good, you can keep that going. But some comedians use foul language, but it's just as a comma, where some use it as an exclamation point, where I'm like, okay, I understand what he's doing there. It's not something I would ever do, because I don't want my kids to be able to repeat what I'm saying. But it just started real organically for me. And then once I started doing comedy in different places, like churches and corporate events, it just all lined up. It made sense, because I want to be able to talk to everybody. I had a lady at my show. She must have been 90. She had an oxygen mask and things going up her nose, and then she had her great-granddaughter next to her. It's like 9 years old. And they're both laughing hysterically. And that was a pretty awesome visual.
That's a beautiful moment. That's a beautiful moment. And, you know, the other thing that I love is, yeah, you're clean, but you don't shy away from tough topics, because I think humor is this incredible venue for being able to talk about tough things. And when I recently got to be at one of your latest shows, you were just very open talking about race and some of the challenges and differences and things that you see. And you had people absolutely rolling. How can humor help us tackle those kinds of things to where we're not trying to shy away? So when we're talking clean humor, we're not talking about pretending like there aren't elephants in the room, pretending like there aren't challenges in our culture today. Why do you think that humor can help us tackle those things?
Well, I think that when we talk about them without humor, I think it's good. But when you add a humor, it takes away a lot of the tension, because people have a tendency, especially when you talk about race, they have a tendency to immediately want to pick a side. And nobody wants to be considered a racist. So as soon as you start talking about it, they don't know where to stand. They can't stand anywhere too hard, because they don't want to be called racist. And they don't want to be like, people just don't know where to stand. But if you introduce some of those subjects with comedy, they don't have to choose where to stand, because they're laughing. Mm-hmm. So they're just wherever their feet happens to be, they're laughing. So it lets you open up some dialogue. So I actually believe that laughter actually makes it a lot easier to talk about. The more we can laugh at our differences, the less important it becomes. And
you do it brilliantly. I got to watch this crowd just like putty in your hands, and it was just a gorgeous thing to get to see. You handled it so beautifully, so adeptly. You were really ministering through humor in that moment. It was awesome.
I don't think people even use putty anymore.
Putty? Is that like peekaboo? Are you saying that now I'm dated on both putty and peekaboo? All right.
Well, not dated, but when was the last time you saw putty? Like, it's like, oh, hey, there's some putty. Like, they don't sell it at the store. You can't buy it. So I would say Play-Doh.
Okay, all right. I'm going to amend what I said. I'm going to compliment you afresh.
Clay in your hands.
Okay. They were clay in your hands. They were Play-Doh. They were non-toxic, non-comedogenic, non-GMO Play-Doh in your hands. That's what they were.
Awesome.
That's what I watched.
Everybody happy.
You made everybody happy.
Gluten-free.
Gluten-free. I'm sorry. Yes, gluten-free as well. I'm sorry. Yes, and gluten-free as well.
You notice how salty Play-Doh is?
It is, actually. It was actually one of my preferred things to eat as a child. So.
Yes. It's weird because you're not supposed to eat it, but everybody knows that it's salty.
Yeah, it's delicious. If you have a salt need, you need a little sodium fix.
I think that could actually be a cool. I could write a joke about that. Be like, hey, you know how you're not supposed to eat Play-Doh, and then just be quiet, and the audience will start laughing because they know they ate it.
They know they ate it, and they know it was salty. They know it was.
Everybody.
It's like tortilla chips.
It's really salty. Yeah.
Right back to the interview with Michael Jr. But first this, if you want to make a difference in the world, do something for a child in need that makes a world of difference through Compassion International. It always inspires me what an intentional, proactive group of women can accomplish. And over the last few months, there is a group of women who have changed the lives of children. And just a few months ago, the podcast began partnering with Compassion International to help children in need across the globe. We asked our listeners to sponsor a child, and those listeners have shown up. We've had so many of you make a simple yet powerful decision at just a little over $1 a day to ensure that a child in need receives medical, educational, nutritional, and spiritual care, and it is changing lives and communities. Let's finish out 2018 strong. Join the growing number of empowering women who are making the world a better place by sponsoring a child in need today at compassion.com/allmomdoes. That's compassion.com/allmomdoes. You've been saying you want to make a difference in the lives of others this year. Make that difference starting today. We'll talk about the temptation that we sometimes find amongst those who are walking the comedian calling amongst our interpersonal relationships to use humor to deflect. Now, sometimes in a positive way, but sometimes to really avoid what's actually going on. How do you navigate that in your own life to make sure that you're having the real conversations where you really need to, and you're also getting to engage this incredible gift of humor that you've been given? How do you balance that in your own life?
So I look at it like I make sure that I'm not using comedy as a chicken exit.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning I try to have those real moments. First of all, I'm not the life of a party. If you ever went to a party and you saw me there, it's probably not me. It's somebody who looks like me. But if it was me, I'm the quietest dude in the room, just sitting there, not really engaged at all. I'm just probably kind of watching people a little bit. So I feel like it's important to remember the question that you asked me. Yeah, what did you ask me? I was chewing on this Play-Doh.
You were still back on the Play-Doh. I understand. You were just,
I was chewing on the Play-Doh, and it fell out of my mouth and landed on my apron.
Well, and then
it was right on the spot that said peekaboo.
Right, and you were about to order in takeout. I understand. I remember.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Well done. Well done. It was a great question, though. I remember thinking, wow, that's a good question.
It was such a good question. You forgot. I get it. I'm going to give you another chance. You gave me another chance to kind of repurpose Play-Doh and putty. I'm going to give you another chance here. The temptation to use humor to deflect. Don't miss the irony of that. The temptation to use humor to deflect. How do you balance that in your own life?
That's what I just did. This is exactly what just happened.
Genius.
I just gave you a beautiful example. I jumped into the apron statement because I was deflecting away from the fact that I forgot the question about deflection.
And there it is.
I didn't want to receive rejection.
Boom.
I think we always should deal with what's in front of us. I think it's a great opportunity. Like fear, I look at fear really as confirmation that I'm supposed to press forward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about fear that doesn't make sense because fear is only like a false reality appearing real. That's from Zig Ziglar. I wish I would have came with that. That's the acronym.
It's a good one. It really is.
Yeah. So when I feel that false reality appearing real, I always try to push towards it. Now, I will use comedy to break ice.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's a little tension, or if I'm in a meeting and there's too much you can feel something is weird, I'll say something funny just so we can get back on track. but I'm very intentional about when I use funny and when I don't. And that's what people experience in this movie. Like, the fact that this movie has these hard stories in the middle of it, of people living in the woods, literally people living under a tarp in the woods in the middle of a comedy special. It's like there's no way you should be able to navigate this, but it actually works.
No, and it's so well done. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate on some of the pieces of it that I've been able to see is that you aren't shying away from tough topics. And, this is going to sound a little dark, but I think some of the times I've laughed the hardest, and not in a way that I'm trying to deflect humor, but have been in situations that have been really, really tough. And it really is true tears. And then it really is true laughter that comes from a really deep place. And I think sometimes we try to segment too much, this feeling of, well, something that's challenging or difficult can't be funny. And then sometimes we try to, bury something in comedy. You really have this ability in the film to really bring out both sides, so that when you come out the other side, you feel like you felt all the feels in a really productive way. And so how did you come up with the title for the film, which is premiering October 18th, More Than Funny? Because it's funny, but it is more than funny. So tell me about the title.
Yeah. So it's October 18th, but it's one night only, though. That's what people got to remember. So you got to go on October 18th. If you show up on the 19th, it's going to be an old episode of Adventures.
So make sure it's October 18th you show up. Absolutely.
Yeah, one night only. So the way we came up with it, well, I was asked the question, how can I give people an opportunity to laugh as opposed to trying to get it? So shortly after having that revelation of giving as opposed to trying to get, I had this lady ask me, hey, would you ever consider doing comedy would you ever consider doing it for us at this homeless shelter I work at? And I was very intrigued by that. And I was like, wow, how would that work out? And my first thought was, well, what if they don't laugh because they're homeless? That's what my first thought was. My second thought was, well, I'm there to give them an opportunity to laugh. I'm not trying to take anything from them. So it doesn't matter if they laugh, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I felt like on paper. So after I convinced myself of that truth, we go to this homeless shelter and we do comedy for these people. And I have an amazing time, and they laugh really, really hard. And then we went to a prison, and then we started going to homeless shelters, all of these different places to do comedy. And it was really blowing me away. All of these people who really needed to laugh, but they just hadn't had an opportunity before like that. So as I'm doing this, I'm also thinking, while I'm on stage that night at the full event with 3,000 people there or whatever, I said to myself one time, I was like, why don't I share one of those stories with these people? Why don't I tell them about this homeless family I just met? And I just decided to share it one night, and it just changed the audience in a way that you wouldn't expect. I would think it would shut comedy down. Nothing's funny. We're done. You lose the audience. But it actually opened them up a little more, and the jokes that we did after were received even better. Like, it did the opposite of what you might think. And I was flipping like, man, what? Mm-hmm. Like, it actually did the opposite. So then we started continuing to go to places like that. Abused children. Like, we just went to a bunch of places and got a bunch of great stories. So when it was time to do this comedy special, I was like, I want it to be funny, but I want to add some of this more in there too, some of these stories. So we took camera crews all over the place with us and captured 3 stories, and we laced them in the middle of the jokes. And it works out really, really well. And at the end of it, at the end of the comedy special, people laughing, they're inspired by these stories, there's a really cool twist that nobody is expecting. Like, nobody even expects this in general. You think in comedy special, you're just going to go laugh, stand up, and then we're out. Nobody's expecting the stories. And I'm telling you about the stories, but now I'm also telling you that there's something else that people is going to happen at the end that people just, there's no way you can see this coming. There's no way you can see this coming.
I love it because it really is an experience.
Completely unpredictable.
Right. Yeah. It really is an experience. And I think that's what you provide that is so beautiful in the times that I've gotten to see you perform. And you do something that I think is so brilliant. You talk about how audiences can be the punchline. So unpack that for my listeners, because I got to watch this and experience it. It's so stinking smart. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I understand comedy. Like, I fully get comedy. I've been doing it for probably 24 years now. And basically, comedy, not just stand-up, but anytime you laugh, there's a formula that takes place. There's a setup, and then there's a punchline. See, the setup is when a comedian will cause his audience to think in one direction. But a punchline is when he changes the direction in a way they're not expecting. When they catch on to that change, that's them receiving the punchline, and the results are revelation, it's fulfillment, and it's joy, but it's expressed through laughter. So anytime you laugh, that takes place. If you see a guy walking down the street and he trips and falls, and you laugh, the reason you're laughing is because the setup was anybody should be able to walk down the street. You've seen it a million times before. But this guy couldn't do it. Boom, that's the punchline. You laugh. But in life, it's the same way. There's a setup and there's a punchline. Your setup is about the things that you have received. You're married, you got a house, you got a car, you got 8 kids. Like your setup is about what you've received. But your punchline, that's about what you're called to deliver. And a lot of people know their setup. Everyone knows their setup. Just look around, see what you got. You're married, house, car, went to school, whatever. But a lot of people know their setup. But what if I ask the question, who knows their punchline? Because your punchline is about what you're called to deliver. If you don't know your setup and you just know your punchline, you'll realize that something's missing. And what you think you'll need to fill that void, you think you need more setup. If I could just get married, if I could just get a house, if I could just. But what you really need to understand is what is your punchline. Because your punchline is where true fulfillment is. And just like me as a child struggling with my reading and all these other things, your setbacks are part of your setup so you can deliver the punchline you're called to deliver. It's like a slingshot. The further somebody's been set back, the further they're going to reach. But what good is it if they don't know what you're aiming for? So literally, there's so many parallels with how comedy works and how life works. I mean, in life, there's something you're called to do. And there, more times than not, there's a heckler in life, other people telling you you can't do it. Sometimes that heckler's on the outside, sometimes he's not. So you have to determine, are you going to let this heckler stop you from what you're doing? Or are you going to press on, win the crowd over, and accomplish what you're called to do? That was bonus. I've never said that part before about the heckler. That was all bonus.
That was really good. I hope you wrote it down because you need to use that, friend.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that internal heckler is something that I think we all have to unpack because I think it's easy for us to identify those people in our audiences, in our communities, in our homes sometimes who don't believe in what we're trying to do or trying to subvert what we're trying to do. But you're so right. Often it's that voice inside that's calling us down from the audience and not believing in what we're trying to do that's the toughest heckler to deal with. I think it's brilliant. Maybe you should write a book about that, Michael. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Plato and hecklers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take your heckler and put them in the palm of your hand and make them
like putty.
Play-Doh. Putty. Make them putty and say, Putty, you got no place here.
We're bringing putty back. We're bringing putty back right now.
Bringing putty back. Is that a song?
It should be. It's now the soundtrack.
Bringing putty back.
I like it. It's got a good beat. So tell us about one of the families that you highlight in the film, because you have a few families that you highlight in this film, More Than Funny, which has a one night only. You got to get to it, folks. It's on October 18th. So tell us about one of the families involved.
So there's one family that, great family. They're out of, I think they are out of South Lake, Greenville, Texas, I think. And they have a special needs child who passed away. They're pretty sad, and we found out about it. And then we found this artist who's really, really good at what he does. But he's currently a pizza delivery person. So we shared with him the story about them. We just happened to share it with him, and then he contacted us and was like, wait, hey, I got this idea. And this guy draws this picture of their son. And then what we decided to do is we go to the family's house, and they think we're there to hear their story about their son, which we are. And they think that the artist, he's dressed up like really one of the production people on our team. And then he sits next to him on the couch and hands him this brown picture frame, but it's in a wrapping. And when this family opens this up and sees the picture, it's it is so awesome. So this artist just simply uses setup to deliver. And when you hear their story, what they went through with their son, and then you hear about his story and the connection is made, you're done. And then we're right back to the jokes again. Like, it's so cool the way all of this stuff just kind of comes together, man. It's so cool.
It's beautiful. And I
know
there's
another family that adopted 9 kids, and then they got a vehicle stolen, and it was in another story. Like, it's so cool what happens. And then it works in the middle of jokes. I'm just blown back by how all of this stuff comes together. And here's the thing, too, that your listeners should know about. There's some theaters across the country that are sold out. Because this is a one-night event, some theaters are actually selling out. So hopefully your listeners can really get there. I'm sure if they're listening to you, that we're kind of like-minded, and they can probably get a lot out of it.
I believe so. And, you know, I know that when you have a concept that you're wanting to bring for comedy, for a film, for wanting to pay it forward, for teaching people how to be the punchline, about calling people to deliver more, all of that's there in concept. And then you actually get to walk the process of seeing it play out. And you're going to get to experience, you, Michael, the culmination of this on October 18th. How has this process changed you?
Well, I'm actually a recipient, meaning I got to do this, and when I made the change to giving laughter, but I felt like one of my responsibilities is to bottle it and give it to other people. So when I hear about other people saying that, you know what, I sat down, I looked at my setup, and I realized this is my punchline. So an example is I did a radio show this morning, and the DJ said, you know, I came to your show about 7 months ago. And he said, afterwards, me and my wife sat down and we said, well, what can we do? They own a radio station. And they said, well, what's our setup? And they actually wrote down what their setup is. What all do they have? They got the station, they went to school. They started looking in their community for businesses that were really about helping people. And they found this lady who goes to weddings, and she does a portrait of what's going on at the wedding, and then she sells it, and that's her business. So they decided that they were going to give her 3 months of free radio advertising to promote her business, which is amazing to me. Meaning they just used their setup to deliver a punchline, and this guy was choked up in tears on the phone telling me about this. But it was in front of him all the time. He just needed to look at his setup and then find out who needed it. But a lot of times what happens is we wait until somebody is hurt before we try to help them. And when they are hurt, we just try to give them some money. Well, money isn't a punchline. It's only a result of you using your setup.
Michael Jr., thank you so much for the way that you not only make us laugh, but you're also going to make us cry a little bit on October 18th, and you're going to teach us this beautiful idea of really being there to give. Thank you so much for all the inspiration and laughs that you give us along the way.
Yo, you're awesome. Thank you so much. You're really good at this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
And
well,
you
God bless.
A great sense of humor, too. I like your sense of humor.
I am going to keep that on tape and play it for my kids just to reinforce that. Michael Jr. said so. Awesome. Hey, love to your wife and kids, and I hope I get to see you again soon. Thanks so much. Check out all Michael Jr. is doing, some hilarious videos of his stand-up, and get your tickets to More Than Funny at michaeljr.com. That's Michael, MichaelJR.com. And let me know what you thought about this episode. You'll find me on all the socials at Julie Lyles Carr, and my website is julielylescarr.com. I'd love to chat with you in the DMs on Instagram, so come by and say hi. AllMomDoes.com. You've got to check it out. All kinds of inspiration, information, encouragement for you on both the blog and all the socials. Just look for All Mom Does. Donna Toti and Rebecca Beckett, you are rock stars. Donna is our producer and Rebecca is our content coordinator. And they are the ones who make sure all this awesome content makes it out into the podcast universe each week. Be sure and leave a 5-star rating, subscribe, and share. And that helps others find all the fun and encouragement you're getting to experience here at the Modern Motherhood Podcast each week. Holiday prep season is upon us, and coming up next week, we've got Polly Connor of Thriving Home, who's going to help us strategize and think ahead to get our freezers deliciously stocked as we head into the most wonderful and the busiest time of the year. That's next week on the Modern Motherhood Podcast.